created is a series of books that allow us to work our way through things. And obviously that's a whole thing, right? Like that's a few days worth. But I wanted to be able to just like share some of the pace of the book with you all. And belonging is where we begin. And I'll just read out to make it easier. The ache to belong is real, and it lays deep within all things. It's not merely an ache to live or exist, but to be a part of more than ourselves, a recognition that within all things we express fully as all that we are. In expressing fully, we express our truth, we find our capacity to relate, and this is where we come together. Within the ache to belong is the asking to relate. For our relationship with each other and all things, we are one. Belonging is absolutely at the base of what we talk about, in the book, in the sense of before even discovering the living system, it's understanding that there is within all of us an ache to belong. And that belonging is to land, but it's also to each other, and it's to all the things that are around us, and really starting to understand and question that. Because I think before everyone runs to the hills, they need to work out where they belong. And that's not saying that there's only one part of belonging in us, but there's a part of belonging that's going to ask us to really root down. And that's the beautiful part that is very, very Indigenous. And why at the end, when I'm talking about the actual sort of business structure of the living system, it's important to have Indigenous voice in there. Because whilst we want to belong to a space, and we do, and the act of belonging is relational, the Indigenous First Nations people of each land, quite small mostly, right? It's not just one whole country. You've got, small mob, tribe, clans, however they're described in different places, that know that piece of land through and through. And not only know the land, but they know the dreaming. They know the spirits. They know the gods, goddesses, whomever may be there. Whatever language is used, they know how it has come to life through that land. And the brilliance we need from them right now is that they, as a people, are the first to have really heard that language. And they have built their entire lives on that language, which is the beginning of colonialism, pulling that away. Which, in pulling us away from all of that, not only, that's a whole thing, right? Like going into what that did, those tears, those rips, those cuts did, from really understanding those qualities, those capacities around having that Indigenous connection to each parcel. Because it is going to, for example, where we are here with Virsoleil, the hamlet, if that's the word, the hamlet that this part is, may be very different to the next hamlet. This may have contained one group of people. It may be two, but in Australia, we've got more than 250 mob on that one piece of land. They all have their own language. They all have their own dreaming. They all have their own stories. And the stories make up a whole. But on that land, if that's where you are, that's the dreaming that began it. That's the story that's there. That's how life first spoke. They are the first creations that came through that, as are the lizards, as are all of the plants and flowers and everything else. It's a part of how come they know not only what I can do with this tree, but from a health perspective or a energetic perspective, but how to prepare it. This one must be cooked 3 times. This one can be eaten straight off the plant. This one can be this one can be this. Yeah. So because that language has been said, and because they've been able to carry that through in their dance and in their song and in their story. And again, colonialism, if I come in and take that away, if I remove that language, if I tell you that all of that language is useless and the only powerful language is written word, and I know you can't write, but don't worry about that, we'll write the story for you. And there you have history written by the white man, the colonialists, who come in and just have taken everything and left all of this truth, all of that story, all of that remembering for us to return to. So in the section on belonging, it's really about questions. There's no answers there. Asking ourselves so many questions about what does it feel like for each of us to belong? Because it's going to be really different, and really exploring that within ourselves. What does it feel like to belong? How does one belong? You know, going through these questions and really stopping. So as you explore through the book, there's all the depth in there of the concepts, but being able to pull these pieces out and say, let's work on this one piece today. Let's work on belonging today, and sit and deeply answer these questions and explore them within ourselves and pull them apart so that we actually understand why we are on that piece of land, right? Like imagine actually answering these questions and going, this is why I'm on this piece of land. And this is the depth of belonging I have here. And then that being the very rudder that you walk out with every day before we do anything else. That's the stepping out. I'm here and I'm present and I'm with you. And I am your ally. And that's another great thing that I think we explored somewhere during this. And as we get on to talking about our own personal unraveling, that's a part of this. Decolonizing our minds is a must. It's important work. It's essential work to understand and remove so much of that colonization out of our being. You know, that's one thread we can cut. And the more threads slowly we cut away from that system, we start to allow ourselves to go, you know what? Here's everything. Just sitting here waiting for me, right? Because it provides for us. And so through this belonging piece, you know, we just, you know, really deeply ask questions. Questions are so important, so much more important within the living system than answers, right? Because it brings up that curiosity. And because it's not going to be the same. It's not going to be the same on the piece of land, and it's not going to be the same within each of us. And that's where our skill and capacity to come back into relationality is so important. And that's been really taken from us. Our ability to relate outside of each other is absolutely apparent in the huge crisis of mental health we have, where we are told to be a part of this system, and so many of us know that we don't belong in it. Like, I just don't function in that way. Well, then you've got a problem, and here's a few tabs you can take, and once you're sorted, come on back in. You know, that's the model. Get over here because you need fixing so you can fit in this system. Well, that's actually not true. It's the system that we don't belong to. And the minute we get out here in nature and we have the forest bathing and we have our feet on the, you know, soil on soil again, soul on soil again, we understand that that's what we belong to. And given that space, and that's why when people come here or come, you know, to all these different pieces of land, that's why they get Virsoleil, because they're connecting again, right? And all of this stuff is trying to purge out of them and go, I'm trying to let go of all this stuff because this is where I want to step back into. So this is where we are first introduced to relationality, because that is absolutely the crux of the living system. You know, living system is a relational system. At all times, life is creating things that are relational to each other. She does not create challenges without creating a solution. We are so far removed from that, we only see our problem and then think we can create the solution. Oh, I can fix that for life. Don't worry, right? But she's got the solutions already there. We just have removed ourselves from the capacity to put them together and truly understand and witness the patterns and see the symbiotic relationship that's happening and be able to work that in. So bringing back that relationality is essential. But again, we build on that from belonging, because then if this is where I am, I want to relate here. I want to put that time and energy into building our connection. I want us to be connected, and I'm going to do the work to relate and build that relationship because I belong here and I belong to you and you and you and you, right? That's how we go in, so that we really deeply understand that connection. So the essence of belonging is that in relationality, we understand we are not here to compete against each other, but to complete each other. We are not here to compete against nature, hold war against nature, but to find ourselves amongst it and to complete our wholeness. It is belonging that is the first step in the relationality of this completeness. So finding ourselves again and really wanting to be a part of it. There's so many pieces to all of the things that we're discovering, but belonging really comes back to how we can connect and the ritual we build in that. So that's what's going to deepen our capacity to belong. That we connect and we build ritual to that means we stay deeply in that space. So again, in going through something like this other day, we'll be looking at what those connections are and what rituals we can build to be here so that we feel that glue deepening and deepening and deepening, right? So that essentially, which again is running through all Indigenous culture, the fact that that energy is coming up through my feet, through my body, through my expression. Why do I want to put hands in soil? Complete that cycle, right? I'm putting that energy back in and I'm bringing it back up, and I am this fluid cycle with life as much and into each other, right? It's not just that we are meant to get all this stuff from life and it's for me and it sits in this little framework, in this little house, and that's where it's meant to stay. It's about expression and giving that in a relational form. Again, another stronghold of colonialism and capitalism, removing our capacity to reach out, connect, have voice, have capacity to really be together. If I can remove so many of those things, then you can't relate to each other, but you can relate to me, and I'm going to hold you and look after you. So all of these things really cleverly designed to be able to pull us together. So this leads us into, it connects us. So with the living system, there's lots of different pieces that all just continue to weave through. That's why the lemniscate, the lazy 8, is used in there. Making place is in our values, in our locality section, but I bring it in here because when you belong, these are some of the things that you're doing. And we go into it in more depth, but know the land, know the people, know the water, know everything about the place, as well as know the dreaming of life in that land. Really know. Take the time to understand. And in the book it talks about who's died here, who has bled for this land, whose blood and bones are we built on, right? Like there's honour in so much that is around us. What water flows through? What's its name? Where does it flow? Where does it start? Where does it end? What is it bringing you? Really understanding the depth of what is within this space allows us to deeply connect and honour and belong in that space, and allows us to be a part of what is being offered in that space. This is how life is wanting it. This is how life is doing it. So this is how it shows up here. This is where she's come from. This is what her aim is. And how do I play a part in that? As example, if I'm just going to sit here and throw rubbish in it, the rubbish is going downstream and they're going to cop it all, right? You might like your little pristine place, but that's what's going to happen. So what is coming to me? Oh, this rubbish is coming to me. I'm going to go upstream and say, hey, you know, your lack of love and care is leading to this on my land, right? So really knowing where all of these threads come in and go to, making place is absolutely vital.